Blackhawks fans, welcome to another edition of the Four Feathers podcast. Gentlemen, it's been about a month, just under a month since we've been on the microphones. We got plenty to talk about. But gentlemen, happy Blackhawks training camp. It is season 7 of the Four Feathers podcast. Holy shit, where does time go? I still remember the first 2 episodes of this podcast back in 2018. I am GM Ron, joined by the great Tony Marchese and none other than Steve Kwiatkowski. Gentlemen, happy hockey. Training camp is here. Season 7 of Four Feathers is here. Tony, how you feeling, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, Ron. It's a great day to be alive. I'm glad that we have made it. 7 seasons. Holy shit is right. I remember the first couple episodes myself. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. Ron, remember how we had a lot of turbulence trying to get this thing off the ground? I think that was like episode 1 or 2. That was a fun season back there in season 1. It was a different era in Blackhawks hockey at that point in time as well. So thank you to everybody who's been on this crazy ride for the last 6 seasons. We're going to try and bring it here in season 7. I'll just start it out and say this. We're going to try and be here more in season 7 than we were in probably season 6 and season 5. I think I'm looking forward to that. We've got Steve on here now. This is going to be his first full season on the show. Make sure you're following Steve at Dirty Third 81. We're happy to have Steve on board with us for the full season. We've also added more coverage. Our guy, Blackhawks Cowboy, shout out to you, on board for season 7 as well. Check out his work over on tapsportsnet.com. Might be a couple other additions. Ron, we brought on a Chicago Wolves writer. We're going to get some Chicago Wolves credentialed coverage here at On Tap Sportsnet. Andrew Rinaldi. Ron, I believe you've worked with him in the past. So more hockey coverage coming to On Tap Sportsnet. Season 7, we're going to try and bring more energy, more post games maybe from time to time, maybe a watch along here or there, try and get some more interviews and more Blackhawks content coming your way. Ron, it's been wonderful 6 years, but I think season 7, we could try and make it our best season thus far.
Steve, I believe you told us a little bit earlier as we were going back and forth about this being season 7, that it's your lucky number and it's your first full season as a member of the Four Feathers podcast crew. First off, sir, how you doing? Second off, I think that might be some good juju, as Tony's alluding to here, for what's to come in season 7.
Yeah, I think you're right. 7 is indeed my lucky number. Doing all right. Gonna be honest, it's been a bit of a bummer of a week for me and my family. We lost our family dog. So, rest in peace to Milu. You were a good pooch. So I need a good pick-me-up, and I think this episode is definitely going to be doing that for me. So I'm excited to do my first full season. Hopped on with you guys midway about last season, and it's been fun. I've told you guys like a bunch of times before, like I've been listening to the show since the early days. So I'm excited to be here for the full season and see how things go.
Yeah, how about that? It's going to be a blast, man. I know we're, as always, pumped to have you a part of the crew. Blackhawks Cowboy, we're excited to have him as an addition as well. It's going to be a fun year. Four Feathers has a little bit of a different look than years past, but I think there's going to be a lot of good things that come this season. Our good friend in the comments, Mr. Skokes, Dudes is back for a season 7 and chugging with fresh. What's up, fellas? Damn, sorry, Steve. That's never easy. Completely agree. You and I talked about that a little bit before the show, Steve. So very, very sorry for you guys, because it's a bummer. Those little fur balls become a part of the family, man, and it's like losing a family member. It really is. But hopefully we will be able to cheer you up, because, gentlemen, first talking point. Happy Blackhawks training camp. It's here. Today, Thursday, September 18th, was the first official day of training camp practice. You could kind of say Wednesday was kind of the soft launch of training camp per se. It was the physicals day, guys kind of just getting in the building. There was some news over the last couple of days that came about as well that we're going to touch on here as we move through the show. But gentlemen, it's here. What in the hell are you guys looking forward to? What headlines are you following? Steve, you put together a great article over at ontapsportsnet.com no such thing here as a shameless plug, but it's a shameless plug. Go ahead and go check that out, everybody, if you're listening along with us as well. A lot of good thoughts there from Steve. But guys, other things. What is it that's really getting you up and kind of getting the motor running again for exciting Blackhawks hockey? What are you focused on as we wane through September and into the month of October, where regular season games will begin?
I'm looking forward to see how Connor Bedard's looking. He said he's been working on his speed during the offseason, so I want to see how he's looking to start things off. And I think for me, that's kind of like the big storyline, I guess, for the whole season is how Connor Bedard is in his third year. Because I'll be honest, it's kind of a letdown last year, and I'm really sick and tired of seeing Sharks fans rub Macklin Celebrini in our face. So I want to see Bedard prove all the haters wrong. I think that starts in preseason, just seeing glimpses of like this kid's going to crush it this year. And beyond that, it's really just all the other young guys that are up with the Hawks now, mostly on the blue line. I'm excited to see Levshinov, see Sam Renzel. We'll talk a little bit about him with the Tom Kerber's showcase. And then, of course, we got a new head coach. So I want to see how Jeff Blashill is. And I was listening to the Blackhawks Breakaway podcast with Pat Boyle and Charlie Roumeliotis, and they were saying how Jeff Blashill was really intense with the guys and kicked off training camp or with early mornings every day. They're hitting it hard with bag skates if you miss a pass. So it's already kind of like the tone is set. It's going to be fast paced, and I'm excited. I got low expectations for how they'll be in the standings, but I'm excited to see all the young kids kick ass this year.
I will just add on to what you had to say there, Steve. From reports of those in attendance for the first Blackhawks practice, you mentioned a couple of the notes as well. I believe one of the ones I saw was it only took about 5 minutes for the first F-bomb from Jeff Blashill. Intensity is exactly what it sounds like right now coming out of camp. Tony, I'll go ahead and give you the floor next year, my friend. Aside from Connor Bedard and the Utes, what anything specific that really is catching your eyeballs right now with training camp opening up?
Yeah, I mean, Steve hit on most of these things here. You want to see Jeff Blashill, as Steve sort of alluded to, set the tone for this group. So far, so good. I mean, it's just day one, but you want to see intensity, as you mentioned, Ron. That's something that may or may not have been lacking under Anders Sorensen. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of shakes out in terms of practice pace. When we get into the first preseason game, what that looks like, how he lays the guys out there. But I think there's some interesting positional battles. They mentioned Lucas Reichel having a prove it camp. I believe that came out of Kyle Davidson's mouth. You look at the guys that he's skating with right now in the first day of camp, and those are, I believe, Oliver Moore, and I forget who else he was with, but some guys that are sort of on the fringe. So if you're looking at that and reading between the lines, you could say that, also with the statement that's pretty direct, you've got to have a good camp, Lucas Reichel. So there's one right there. There's other guys like Kevin Korchinski, some fringe players that could potentially break into the NHL with the Blackhawks roster at opening night or opening day, opening afternoon, whatever we want to call it out in Florida, that weird 4:00 start on Tuesday. But I think that I'm looking most forward to seeing who cracks this roster, because there's plenty of names. Unlike seasons past, there's a lot of guys who are on that fringe, whether it be a Lucas Reichel, who could be on his last strike with the team, down to some young guys who one good preseason game could really shape the minds of Kyle Davidson and the coaching staff and say this guy's going to start the season with the big team instead of heading back down to Rockford or elsewhere. So, there's enough there to make this camp really interesting to me, Ron.
Indeed, and chugging with fresh is definitely make or break time for him in reference to Lucas Reichel. Gentlemen, I think this stemmed perfectly because Steve started off with kind of the wide view, a lot of the big headlines that we're all certainly looking forward to. Tony, you found another one that is, roster wide, but still another kind of layer deeper. I'm going to take it another layer deeper, and that is who sticks with Connor Bedard through training camp on his wings. And today he was paired with Ryan Donato and Andrei Burakovsky. Burakovsky, obviously kind of we'll call him the big addition, quote unquote, of the offseason for Kyle Davidson and company. I'm intrigued to see if that group is staying together. I'm intrigued to see if they do shuffle around. I think this season.
Is it too early, Ron? Is it too early to already complain that Connor Bedard needs more help?
No, because nobody's stopped since last season. But I think,
hey, we got to start season 7 off with a bang somewhere. There's my first complaint.
It's valid. It's valid.
It is valid. I think, I really do. I really do think it'll be interesting, though, just to see who gets kind of the first crack with Bedard. And I think you can make the same argument about Frank Nazar, right? The hype is certainly there. The big extension this offseason, the last time we were on those airwaves, that was the highlight of our episode. And what a hell of a way to close out season 6, huh? A big young star getting a really big extension. I think whoever sits in the top 6 with those two is going to be really fascinating because I think, to your point, Steve, that can really set the tone for the season too. Yeah, maybe it's not a playoff appearance, but maybe they're the team you don't want to see if you're in a tight playoff picture in February and March of next year because they're young. They're naive, and sometimes naive is good because they're just going to play hard and put their nose to the grindstone. They don't know what's at stake for some of these playoff teams. Maybe that's a good thing, and maybe that'll make them more exciting to watch. And we will see that next step that Kyle Davidson once again kind of hammered home again today as he spoke to the media. The expectation is it didn't happen last year. Hey, motherfuckers, new coaching staff, let's go. This thing needs to take another step forward. So some great headlines to be watching as training camp begins to move along. Speaking of headlines, gentlemen, probably the most notable one over the last little over 24 hours. I think it was announced at about 8:30 last night, I believe. Wyatt Kaiser finally signs his contract with the Chicago Blackhawks. It is a 2-year deal. Ron Luce's prediction on that front was correct, but I was off on the dollars. I said 2.3 million he would get per season. It comes in at 1.7 AAV. So he's locked in. He's already in Chicago. He's with the team for training camp. Quick reactions here to Wyatt Kaiser's signing. This was kind of the last means of business that we were waiting for from Kyle Davidson and company before the start of the year. Anything you're shocked about here, or is this kind of business as usual in your guys' eyes?
I was kind of wondering what in the hell was taking so long for this deal to get finished, because it came in like right at the last possible second, and Kaiser even said it was like kind of going into overtime. So it's, finally the deal got done. I think it's fair. I can't remember what I said. It was nowhere near this close. I probably said something stupid, so probably a good thing I forgot it. But I think it's fair. I don't have any hates or anything. Good for him.
Indeed, good for him. Tony, anything you want to expand on?
Obviously, it's good that the deal got done before training camp, and things are where they're at, and he's locked in, like you said, Ron. But this one went far too long, in my opinion, in terms of just the weird, odd comments that come out. Davidson, got it done and got a good young player back on the ice, not missing any time. Happy to have Wyatt under contract. I think he's going to be a big part of the team this year. Looking forward to him continuing to establish himself in the NHL. That's just boilerplate GM speak, in my opinion, at this point for, hey, we got this done. Obviously, Kaiser had his own things to say in terms of, going into overtime. He talked about how he wanted to be here and the Hawks wanted him here, except, it came down to the business end. Ron, I think your contract that you threw out there is probably fair, probably what his camp was angling for in terms of dollars, or at least closer to it. The Hawks probably played a little bit of hardball here, and that's fine. They're looking out for their best interests when it comes to probably loading money for a guy named Connor Bedard, whose contract is also been a hot topic since training camp opened and the media's gotten a hold of him. We talked a lot about Will Connor-Bedard signed an extension this offseason throughout, since basically the end of last season till now. And obviously that one did not get across the finish line. They've said no rush on it, but I look at the Wyatt Kaiser thing. We got to a point this offseason where it felt like Blackhawks fans started to, or certain talking heads started to sort of poo-poo on Wyatt Kaiser as an essential piece. And I didn't really see that last year. I thought he had a pretty damn good year. I think I graded him pretty highly up there as well as you guys did. Some people are saying, maybe he's, bottom 2 defensive pairing, if not, your 7th guy on the team. I think that's fine. But at the dollar amount they got him for, Ron, I think it's pretty good because I still feel like there might be a little bit more upside to Wyatt Kaiser's game in terms of where he's at, in terms of his development against what you're looking at with the rest of the Blackhawks defensive core this year. If Kevin Korchinski gets raved about in certain circles, even though he didn't really crack the lineup coming out of camp last year and had trouble when he was here, Wyatt Kaiser, there were times where he looked like a solid defenseman last year. So it was kind of interesting to see them not really prioritize it to get it across the table. Maybe they know something we don't know, but it was just a weird situation for it to last that long, especially on a contract that comes in under $3 million. You'd think it would be a lot easier to get that across the finish line, in my opinion. So,
I think that's
we'll see where it goes.
I think that's a fair approach. I think this one was, the more and more I think about it, I wouldn't be shocked if Wyatt Kaiser's camp. I'm willing to bet they came to the 2 years pretty quickly. I think both sides were probably okay with that. Kaiser certainly young enough where a 2-year deal, he's not losing out on prime years to make more money in free agency or anything like that. On the Blackhawks end, hey, 2 years is a great time for us to see you potentially develop, and we can revisit this. And if you're great and we want you still here, we're going to pay you. And if not, hopefully somebody else pays you. Like, that's best case scenario for the player then. I wouldn't be shocked if that 2.3, 2.4 was probably what Kaiser's camp was looking for. I wouldn't be shocked if the Hawks came in at something like 1.1 initially. Dare I say almost like a Lucas Reichel contract, 1.2. And then maybe they finally budged and said, you know what, we want to get this done. Would you guys take 1.7? And if I'm sure Kaiser's camp was just like, yeah, fuck it, that's fine. Like, it's close enough. We want to be in camp.
Do you guys think that part of this might have been they were trying to trade his rights?
No, I don't think so.
No, that's I mean, like I could see Kaiser being a part of, if there was like a bigger trade happening, I could see.
I'm not saying just him. It could be any part of any deal. I'm just curious if maybe they didn't roll into camp really prioritizing this because they thought he was going to be part of something that might bring in offensive help for Connor-Bedard. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there, but it was just weird that it took that long.
You know what it could have been? And this is something that I think has gone under discussed in Blackhawks circles. And I know there will be people out there that say, well, don't read into it. They're just reports, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's at least worth kicking the tires on in terms of discussion. There was a lot of chatter in the NHL in general about moves happening like right at the end of August and all these possible trades and certain teams kicking the tires of certain teams. The Hawks names were brought up at least once, and maybe not uber seriously or with great detail, but like, hey, Kyle Davidson was kind of kicking the tires on trades and to see what happens, right? We heard the whole, like, the Blackhawks are trying to trade Lucas Reichel's contract or, try to trade him potentially if it works out. Maybe they were just telling Kaiser, hey, listen, if we make another addition, we kind of just want to see how that impacts our cap structure going forward. Hold on, we'll get this done. Let us maybe work the phones and see what's going on. And maybe Kaiser's name was discussed. I don't think to a point where they really felt confident about pulling a trigger per se, but I think that's something that goes under discussed of, like, there might have been some more cap gymnastics that they wanted to see. Plus there's something else that we are about to talk about here in just a hot second that happened before Kaiser's deal as well. So maybe just like you said, Tom, maybe it wasn't the highest priority, but at the end of the day, they get the job done and get, I think, what you called a fair contract for both team and player. And speaking of said thing that was probably higher on their list just a little while ago, maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, somewhere in that time frame, the Blackhawks made another extension. Last time we were on these airwaves, it was Frank Nazar that we talked about. This time, it's another core young piece. Goaltender Spencer Knight was extended by the Blackhawks for 3 years. The dollar value comes in at $5.83 million per year on an average annual value basis. So that will be his cap hit. And that is not including this year, right? That is an extension. He is still under contract this year at $4.5 million. So a slight raise for him. He gets about 1.3 more additional dollars per season for the next 3 years. Again, will still be plenty young enough where in 3 years he can get that big contract if he has earned it.
He'll be 28.
There you go. Perfect. There you go. Thank you, sir. Prime goalie age, right? I mean, we see all the old goaltenders that are still doing rather well in the NHL. Sergei Bobrovsky, his former, the guy that he formerly sat behind, a great example of that. Gentlemen, I'll go ahead and kind of kick the conversation off with this extension. When I saw it, I was flabbergasted in a great way. I thought this came in at a lower dollar value than I expected, but I think it's a great contract for both sides because even with Soderblom's 2-year deal, you only have $8-ish million locked up in your 2 goaltenders with a rising cap. That's a great problem to have if you're the Chicago Blackhawks moving forward for, again, a guy who, if he continues to develop, maybe in that 3rd year is one of the best bargain contracts in the league as you get ready to, potentially see what happens on the other side of a new CBA and potential cap rising. I was stoked. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, what a masterful contract. It made me think of the Alex Vlasic deal and the Nazar deal and all these deals that felt like, yeah, maybe you're giving the guy a little bit of money before, but you're getting him at a fair number where you're going to look back and be like, yeah, we did the right thing getting him at that number at that time. Tony, you're the goalie guy. How happy were you when this one came through the newswire?
Very happy, Ron. And I think it goes without saying, you can safely now purchase a Spencer Knight Chicago Blackhawks sweater because he's going to be locked in here for the next 4 years. And that's what I was waiting for. Probably right up there in my next Blackhawks jersey purchases is Spencer Knight. We'll talk a little bit more about jerseys at the tail end of the show. But, Ron, you talk about the dollar value and coming in right around 5.8. You think about this. There was a 3-year deal for Corey Crawford at one point. I think it was around 2.3. And then when he got his big money deal from the Hawks at the time, I think this was after the 2013 season, he signed for around 6. You look at where Spencer Knight's at the next year, 4.5. I think this is a pretty decent raise for a guy who's going to take on another 3 years in net for the Hawks. And say things go completely wrong and Spencer Knight doesn't pan out. This is not going to completely derail the Blackhawks goaltending situation at that dollar value. That's still something that you can sit there. Yes, it's a little bit high for a backup, but it's not over the top where they've given him something that you're sort of screwing yourself in the goaltender room. Now, Ron, there is some money committed still to Laurent Brossoit for this year. I did want to bring that up as well, but all in all, that's probably going to come off the cap hit, I believe. You're the GM here once they officially put him in on long-term injured reserve, which should happen. That'll fall off the cap, but it's still money spent. You're still giving him the money. I really like this contract, and it gives the Hawks sort of an out if you're trying to reevaluate things 4 years from now. It's not 3. I keep thinking that it's 3, but it's 4 years from now. You can reevaluate that and say a Drew Commesso is ready to step in. Say a Guyon or anybody else in Blackhawks development is ready to take the ropes from Spencer Knight. He is still going to be the goaltender that I believe that the Hawks will ride into their competitive window with. And, we've seen this before with a guy like Anthony Niemi, Cristobal Huet at the beginning of the forefront of the dynasty years. Just because that's your goalie doesn't mean that that's going to be your goalie going through, a competitive window. So I think it works for both ends here. Obviously, Spencer Knight's going to want to get another giant contract extension at age 28 after playing for the Hawks for 4.5-5 years almost. I like it a lot. And he was a fan favorite towards the tail end of the season. I think some of that was definitely not only based on the fact that he helped usher Seth Jones out of the city, and also came in and was the number one goaltender over Arvid Soderblom, who I think Hawks fans have a certain feeling about just in general. But I love this contract, Ron. I was just as happy as you were. I think this will be a good deal for both ends. And then, he could go out and earn 8-9 million on his next deal if he's performing as a top performer. Who knows what goalie money looks like and what the cap looks like at that point in time. But yeah, I think it was a really good deal. Once again, Kyle Davidson and Calder in the front office coming in with a fair deal on both sides. It's not the Stan Bowman type stuff that we were used to seeing before. And that's a positive sign going forward overall. I mean, you brought up the Vlasic contract, looking at the Knight stuff. We talked about Wyatt Kaiser just a minute ago. These are coming in a little bit lower than what I would expect, Ron, wouldn't you?
I think for the most part. Yeah, I think for the most part, but again, you're paying ahead of time to get these guys on value a little bit later. In interest with your jersey question, Tony Lebowski said he's getting a number 44 in relation to getting our answer to that Wyatt Kaiser question. Our good friend, the Blackhawks Cowboy, says only 16.75 million until 28-29 for, and he corrected himself in here, it's Knight, Vlasic, and Nazar with a rising cap. That is a huge value. Chug and Fresh agreed. He says here, in my opinion, the end of this deal will be an extremely great value. And then followed that up, Lebowski said, I predicted that the Blackhawks will move on to a much cheaper Drew Comesso after this 3-year Knight contract. But certainly we'll see. He says Blackhawks will not be giving out 8 or 9 million to Knight. He says that would be stupid when the Hawks are entering their contention window. I think it's only stupid if the cap number doesn't continue to rise, but the way it's rising, 8 and 9 is going to look like what 6 and 7 used to very quickly, in my opinion. I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. This is not a slow rising cap like it has historically been. It is rising at an all-time clip when it's all said and done. Steve, your thoughts on the Blackhawks locking in Knight at a great number?
Yeah, I'm going to preface this with kind of just reiterating what you said about the rising cap, because like a lot of these contracts that Kyle Davidson had signed with with Nazar and Knight, if you're kind of used to how contracts used to be signed at, like, yeah, it could kind of look a little scary. But with the way the cap is going, I'm not really too concerned about it. Knight is betting on himself, so I do think I don't want to say it's like a concern where he's asking for 8 or 9, because to be honest, if he's betting on himself, he might be asking for a little bit more than that. And that's where you do want to like take into consideration and how you're planning things, because you don't want to just get too, like free gunning with all the contracts you want to be handing out. Like, just because the salary cap is getting big, that doesn't mean you still have to plan and be smart about your signing. So, we'll see how Knight does. It's definitely, I don't want to say a gamble. I think Kyle Davidson, he saw something in Knight and he really likes what he saw. Even though when the trade first happened, I was really happy, still am. I love Spencer Knight. I think he's going to be that guy. However, we still don't really know what he's like. We still need to see him go through this entire year, and it's not going to be pretty because we have a lot of young defensemen. They're going to make mistakes, which is okay, but that's going to hurt Knight's numbers. Now, going to last year, I just pulled this up. He was really good with high danger saves at 5-of-5. So he had a 918, which is phenomenal. However, one weakness that I noticed was his save percentage on the penalty kill was 727. So that's a weakness. That's an area of concern, and it's special teams. But so Knight's not perfect. That's fine. He's still a young goaltender. But he bet on himself, and in my opinion, like, if it doesn't work out, it's not money that we're going to be missing. It's really more of a concern if Knight does hit, and if he is that guy, what is he going to be asking when the Hawks are entering their contention window? So I do think there is value into kind of taking that into consideration.
100%. And again, I think you guys hit it perfectly. A lot of it's all betting on the future. That's what a lot of these contracts are for the Blackhawks, but it gives excitement because you're now starting to see who this franchise, at least in the near term, and we'll call that near term the next 3 years, who they're starting to value as a part of that core for the next run at contention. A couple quick comments here. Chugging with Fresh said you still need to see him with a solid D in front of him too in relation to Spencer Knight. That's 100% true. Lebowski with a take says this isn't the 90s. Goalies don't matter as much as having a deep 4 line and 3D pair of quality players. I agree, but you also look at a team like Florida who just won 2 cups with like a $10 million a year goaltender. Yes, they got some great contracts other places, but you can make the argument that that's what the Blackhawks are doing with players like Nazar and Vlasic, et cetera, right? Trying to manage that cap so you can pay those big stars when you need them to help you win. So I think the Florida Panthers have really changed the blueprint on how teams are going to bet on themselves to go win Stanley Cups, at least in the near term. Speaking of contracts, gentlemen, we're not done here with contract talk because the Blackhawks signed a player tryout contract or a PTO, as most are used to, with Matt Grzelcyk, the defenseman, played last season in Pittsburgh, was a 40-point defenseman, offensively speaking, had a great season in the black and gold. But some underlying metrics don't necessarily favor his season. Of those 40 points, just 1 goal scored for the former Penguin. They noted in the Athletic article from Pierre LeBrun that he is familiar with the new assistant coach, Mike Vellucci, from their time in Pittsburgh a season ago. So that might have played into this PTO and why he signed with Chicago. Little bit of a hot take on this one that I'm going to save for later to ruffle everybody's feathers. But I will note as well, as a part of LeBrun's report, he noted that the Senators, the Avalanche, the Islanders, and the Ducks are all also places to monitor if Grzelcyk doesn't ultimately sign a contract with the Blackhawks. Remember, this is a PTO, so he is technically not entirely under contract with the Blackhawks. If another team approached him and wanted to sign him, they absolutely could once training camp is over. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as well. Gentlemen, again, nothing's really set in stone with Grzelcyk. This one can go about 15 different ways, it feels like, when it's all said and done. When we get a little closer to the regular season, this is another storyline certainly to monitor as training camp moves along. Anything else we want to add to the discussion here about Grzelcyk signing with the Hawks on a PTO?
My only concern, and I mean, like, I don't want to be concerned about a dude who's on a PTO. He's not even with the team. But if he does end up signing, which I'm not going to be surprised if that happens, only because there were reports throughout the entire summer about how the Blackhawks are interested in bringing on another veteran defenseman. To be honest, I thought that was going to happen a little earlier, but it did not. So, looking at this tells me that the Blackhawks kind of are leaning towards maybe signing him. I think they're going to sit tight and see how the young defensemen look during preseason. I think if there's any concerns, they're probably going to offer him a contract. But in my opinion, what gets me a little worried is how head coaches will defer to veterans. And just because of the nature of their experience, the young guys are going to fuck up and make mistakes. I don't want to see Grzelcyk taking up minutes from a young defenseman who's just going to work through his mistakes. And I get, like, just to use Kevin Korchinski as an example, and I don't want to lean into my ruffle some feathers, but like a lot of
just
people
do it, Steve. Just do it because you're leaning into mine. So we'll just get this thing off the ground.
Okay, fuck it. I think Korchinski, along with Levchinov, should start in the NHL. And, like Korchinski, like a lot of people think he should spend time in Rockford because it's, low pressure, and which is fine. It's true. The spotlight's off of him, but he's going to be learning how to adjust his style, which is his offense. He's going to be learning how to adjust that to the NHL, playing on a team like the Blackhawks, where literally it's low stakes as you can get. This team is ass. So it's not like he's going into the playoffs and like he's got a lot of like responsibilities on his shoulders. It's like a nice place to learn how to play NHL defense. My biggest gripe with Korchinski was his size, but that's beside the point right now. Is I don't want to see Grzelcyk take these minutes that these kids could play. I'm fine with things how they are right now. Like Connor Murphy, cool. I love his personality, his leadership style. He's great on the blue line for this team. Alex Vlasic, he's 24. He's got a couple seasons under his belt. Like, not by any means like what I would maybe consider an actual veteran, but he's got experience. And I think right now what we have is kind of good with what it's set up with this young blue line. And I just wouldn't be happy seeing Grzelcyk on there. But what am I even complaining about? The dude's only on a PTO.
Well, Steve, I think you will be complaining because my ruffle some feathers is that Grzelcyk's absolutely going to take a spot from one of these young defensemen. And I do believe it's going to be Kevin Korchinski. I really do. Because I think the Blackhawks will see it and say, why are we going to put this kid on the third pair to shelter him and him not play a ton of minutes when he still clearly needs development, and he can do that on the first pairing in Rockford? I bet you if Grzelcyk, as long as he doesn't look like a complete just dumpster fire in the preseason, is going to get a contract. Now, there's totally a world where he plays well enough where one of those other teams mentioned could come in and swoop him up on maybe more money because they absolutely need him, or he sees a competitive opportunity with like a Colorado to win a cup and chooses that path. That being said, I really do think he's going to play just well enough where the Hawks see to keep him, but not well enough for any of those other teams to really truly want him. And I think that's why he's going to end up in Chicago. It's one of those things where this is actually, if I'm being honest, the best case scenario for the veteran defenseman. Because to your point, Stephen, I think it's a great point. If one or two of these young defensemen surprise you, and the collective you being the front office of the Chicago Blackhawks, that those guys, then you can let Grzelcyk walk after his PTO and let them play. This is the perfect, we're covering our bases. We'll overpay him a little bit if we have to for 1 year to keep him around if we really feel like we need him. But we're going to just see what happens. I think that's the best case scenario for the Blackhawks because, to your point, Steve, I expected this to happen a lot sooner. I expected them to overpay some veteran defenseman for one season, i.e. what they did with Alex Martinez a year ago, and just see what happens, or even TJ Brody. I think this worked out where they're like, wow,
I thought his name was banned on this show in season 7.
No bans. It's not in the bylaws of the Four Feathers podcast. So until it's in the bylaws, I will break every rule that is
TJ Brody, episode 1 on Four Feathers podcast.
Episode 1. Can't wait to see what it's like by the end of the season because it's gonna sound a lot different. That being said, I think Grzelcyk was like kind of a best case scenario. He was one of the better remaining defensive options out there, and you get him on a PTO. But I really do think he's going to play well enough. I'm also betting on the fact that not all of these young Blackhawks defensemen are going to work out. I really am. And I'm not getting up for the letdown. In the wise words of the great Johnny Nani, I'm not getting up for the letdown because there's no world where all of these guys hit. There's not. So if you want Rinzel and Lev Shinov and Del Mastro and maybe Kaiser to hit, for every one of those guys, there's a guy like Nolan Allen or Kevin Korchinski or somebody of that breadth that doesn't pan out to be what you expected. And unfortunately...
What do you mean it's not going to go perfect, Ron?
It's not going to go perfect. It shouldn't go perfect. You should know this. Chugging Fresh feels the same way. Betting on the future gives him PTSD. Yeah, because you're a White Sox fan. You should know. It doesn't all go like...
I bring this up every week on the show.
I know you do.
I bring this up every week on the show that we do this. I want them all to be good.
Of course. But that's not realistic.
No. We're talking to you, Steve.
No. I think though at the end of the day, like this truly is the best case scenario. So to spin my ruffle some feathers into some positivity, it is the best case scenario because you're not committing a contract yet to anybody. But my spidey senses tell me Matt Grzelcyk's going to wear a Blackhawks uniform.
Is he going to be the punching bag this year? If we're going to take this one step further,
100%.
Will he be the punching bag?
He will be, and I think he'll be the punching bag for Blackhawks Cowboy too, because he says he's still holding a grudge from again because of the 2019 Winter Classic. For those that maybe don't realize, Grzelcyk was a member of the Boston Bruins, so at that time, so that is why that is being mentioned. Be interesting to see, gentlemen. Hell of a ruffle some feathers, Steve. It's good when we could get those out in the discussion of the show, because that's when you know it's a thing of beauty and ready to roll. Gentlemen, we talked a lot about some of these young defensemen and these these guys that we're gonna just have to wait and see on. Well, we got to see them a little bit in the Tom Curvers prospect tournament that just occurred this past weekend, right? I'm not getting my wires crossed, am I? Maybe it was 2 weeks
You're
ago.
right.
Time doesn't exist. It's all fake and it doesn't make sense anymore. Nonetheless, Blackhawks were in action for two
Time is a
games.
flat circle, is what you're looking for.
I'm looking for a bunch of them, but that is always a good one as well. The first game is where we saw more of the we'll call them big names of the prospects. The second game was more of the lower level guys. Nonetheless, we got some fireworks. An overtime winner from Oliver Moore, certainly exciting. Sam Renzel collected an assist in the game, and Nick Lardis looked very good as well, assisted on that Oliver Moore goal in overtime. They very famously noted after the game that they drew it up right before overtime, that play. And I guess it was something that I believe Oliver Moore used at Minnesota, or no, vice versa. I'm sorry. It was something that Lardis used in Brentford with the Bulldogs. So they went ahead and drew it up, and it worked to perfection. Guys, to me, that was the highlight of the camp, but I want to turn it over to you two. I'm going to take a step back on this one. Thoughts on the Tom Curvers, the player that maybe you're most excited about after the fact? Because, gentlemen, that was kind of the first taste of like quote unquote real hockey that we got as we get ready for the season. Obviously, it's still a prospect tournament, but those were competitive games that those guys were playing over the weekend.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel about it. It's nice to see some Blackhawk sweaters on some ice, and it was fun. It got me excited for some real hockey. And I think I kind of feel the same way about how everybody else felt about it. For me, the standouts was Sam Renzel. I thought, like, not that it's surprising. He met my expectations where he dominated the ice. In my opinion, he was the best player out there. So he only played on that Saturday game. Oliver Moore, he looks really fast. Everybody can agree on that point. And Nick Lardis, he played in both games. I really liked the scoring chances that he got. I would have liked to see him have dominated the scoring sheet, but like, I'm not going to split hairs on these prospect games. The only way I would have been nervous is if like he looked really terrible. Artem Levchinov, I think he only played on the Saturday game. I thought he looked good. He was on the ice for both goals against, and he did make some mistakes. He was also playing with, I can't remember his partner. I can't remember if it was like Harding, but he's not playing with a good defensive partner, so I'm not going to hold it against him totally. But I did like what I saw from Levchinov, but it wasn't anything where I'm getting crazy excited for players. But I didn't see any glaring issues as well. So, Tony, I don't know if you caught the second game because I was painting my ceiling. So I don't know if you got any thoughts from that.
You were painting your ceiling, but you were also running the Four Feathers podcast Twitter account. So kudos to you, man. I'm going to get my stick tap out of the way early because that's called multitasking. And you now know what it's like to be Ron or myself running a Twitter account and getting some highlights out there while trying to multitask on something. But I hope your painting project is going well. The second game was a bit of a letdown compared to the first. Obviously, not as many exciting names in there. I echo Steve's comments when it comes to the Tom Curvers. It's always like the first little bit, like the taste. I think I called it a little bit of a tease out there, the Tom Curvers tease. Yeah, it's the Tom Curvers tease, man. It's getting you, like ready to go, but it's not quite the only thing. And then there's like a little cool down period for training camp, and then you get your juices flowing again when you get preseason hockey, and then the real thing comes. But no, I enjoyed watching the Blackhawks play, but the second game of the Tom Curvers, a little bit of a letdown. I think they should have won that game. There's just not a lot of firepower there, though, when it comes to some of those names that they had on the ice comparative to the night before. I echo everything you said about Sam Renzel. I really like Nick Lardis out there all weekend. That was good to see. You would like to see him probably put one in the back of the net. Unfortunately, sometimes puck rolls the wrong way. Yeah, I mean, the second game overall, really not a lot to write home about. Although I did watch the entire game while football was on, and I know that some people probably enjoyed a little bit more Tom Curvers than they did the result of the Bears game.
Yes, thank you for rubbing that one in, Tony. Genuinely.
You're welcome. I had to get that in there.
I'm sure you did. Well said, gentlemen. A quick comment here from Lebowski 5. He says Lardis needs at least a full year in the AHL. I guess maybe the only thing I'll note from this is I think Lardis might be on a similar plan to the Nazar plan. Like if he goes down and dominates in Rockford over like a 25-game span, they'll give him the call. Otherwise, I completely agree. I think a year in Rockford would do him a lot of good. So I think you're pretty spot on with that, Lebowski, minus my little asterisk that I included there. Speaking of asterisks, we'll go ahead and add a couple of those here in the form of injury notes. Kyle Davidson spoke to the media, as we've noted multiple times throughout the show. Included in that of his multiple points that he shared with the media was that Laurent Brossoit had surgery, so he is out for a quote long term. Whatever the hell that means, we will see.
Means you're never fucking seeing Laurent Brossoit, and you can book it.
Should we at Four Feathers Podcast do an obsolete jersey giveaway and get a Laurent Brossoit jersey to give to somebody, even though he'll never have worn a Blackhawks uniform? I feel like that's the most diabolical giveaway we could possibly do.
Isn't Shea Weber on the roster somewhere?
He is technically, Tone. He is technically. That's why Ryan Suter was my spicy take, because then you'd have a bunch of Predators legends on the Chicago Blackhawks. Technically, I think that would have been a lot of fun. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. But he's out for long term. And then really unfortunate defensive prospect, Ty Henry. For those that saw during the Curvers tournament during practice, he kind of went into the boards, suffered some kind of injury. We found out that he had surgery, I believe, on his ankle. He is out for the season. So that really, really sucks for the young man. Just missing out on time when it's all said. Chicago Refresh with a great comment here. Light a candle. These are our thoughts and pairs for Laurent Brossoit. We'll have to wait and see there. And then just a few guys dinged up. He mentioned Jack Pridham, I believe, was sick. I think he had an illness, so he was kind of day to day. And then AJ Spalacy had some bumps and bruises from his little altercations in Tom Curver's practice. So he's on like a 7 to 10 days. I think that one might have been concussion related.
I think it was concussion related. I think it was concussion related for Spalacy. And then Ronald, you did say that Pridham was sick.
I thought so.
I believe the Blackhawks called it an infection.
An infection,
I've never seen an injury designated as an infection. So that sort of like leaves it up to the imagination. What kind of infection does he have?
Do you remember the Kirby Doc infection?
There was a Kirby Doc infection. That's where I was going. What was Jack Pridham doing into Tom Curvers? You don't know.
You never know. We'll have to wait and see. So those are just some of the injury notes that are hovering over the heads of the Chicago Blackhawks. Gentlemen, we have reached that point.
We got a correction in here. This is why we hired this guy.
Facts.
I think Cowboy shoulder for Spalacy. Thank you, Cowboy.
Thank you.
We're gonna need to get you in here. You can produce this show.
Tony, I'm good with numbers. I'm not always good with information. I know it's 7 to 10 days, but I was wrong on what kind of injury it was. So
it's still baseball season for us. When I see 7 days, I think concussion.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. I think it's the baseball mindset. The 7-day concussion IL is always what gets into my head when it's all said and done. Tony, we ruffled the feathers already. Those infections happening.
That is awesome. I love that.
Check it with Fresh with some just phenomenal comments here so far. And thank you and shout outs to everybody commenting along with us.
This comment section is fantastic for season 7, episode 1. If I do say so myself.
Setting the tone at a high level is the
We're
here tonight.
Setting the tone.
Tony, Steve and I already ruffled feathers with some of our takes in our conversation there regarding Grzelcyk and his role on the roster in the future. Tony, what is your ruffle some feathers, if you have one here for us tonight?
I do have one. Can we just fucking stop with the Connor Bedard contract extension narrative for like 5 minutes? It was all last year. It's been, I think, the same headlines that came out today that Connor Bedard said that Kyle Davidson has said are the same things that were said at the end of last season. And don't get me wrong. We're in the news business here at OnTap Sportsnet. We write articles about the news. That's how we make some revenue, some scratch to keep the lights on here. We talk about this stuff on the show. You know, we're in the news business. These are the same statements that were made multiple times last year that came out today. Let's find a new slant, please, with the Connor Bedard stuff. I understand that it's what everybody's going to want to talk about. He is the A-list name on this team. It's not happening during the season. I don't foresee a Connor Bedard extension happening during the season. If we can get through this week, it's fair game to me. But if I have to hear about this in November, December, January, February, March, April, May, I'm going to blow a gasket. This is going to start to grind my gears. It's already been said that they will get there when they get there. I guarantee you that Connor Bedard's agent is not letting him sign a contract until we know a little bit more about what this next CBA is going to look like. End of story. The narratives that are going to come out of the woodwork from national media are just going to be so fucking asinine, and we're going to be required to comment on them over and over again. So before we get into this full season of, is Connor Bedard really hate Chicago? I can't wait for the, I already know the outlets that are going to put this shit into the universe and let it percolate out there for everybody to get upset. And the next time I see a Vancouver Canucks fan sit there and think that Connor Bedard is going to magically just decide this year that he fucking hates Chicago and he wants to go home to mom and dad's house, I'm going to lose it. So please shut the fuck up and stop talking about whether or not Connor Bedard is going to sign a contract in Chicago. Thank you very much. And, continue on with your life. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Woo, that got me fired up. I love it, Tone. You're 100% right. That's exactly what I was going to add. The whole reason it's a narrative from every other fan base in the league is because they all want Connor Bedard and they don't want the Blackhawks to have nice things.
They all want Connor Bedard, but then they're going to shove Macklin Celebrini down your throat.
Yeah,
as the best young player in the game. Jesus, man,
recency,
just give it a rest.
Recency
5
bias.
fucking minutes.
Yeah, recency bias is a hell of a thing in sports, and especially in the sport of hockey recently. Gentlemen, on a more positive
he needs
note,
his first hat trick. I can't wait for his first hat trick. That needs to come this season. I'll end it on that note.
That's going to be electric when it happens. Chugging with Fresh. If 98 unfollows the Hawks on Instagram, Tony might need some thoughts and prayers. Maybe. That's a really good point. We'll have to monitor the situation as we move along. Gentlemen.
Steve, I'm putting you on that for the season. He's our Instagram guy.
He is our Instagram guy. That's going to be a checkpoint over the course of the year.
I'll be on watch.
It's going to be fun. Stick taps. On a more positive note, Tony, you gave out your stick tap. Do you have another stick tap for us, or was Steve your stick tap all along?
Just roll it through you guys, and if another one comes to me, it's equal opportunity stick taps for everyone.
I like it. I like it a lot. Steve, what's your stick tap?
Yeah, so I like shouting out other Blackhawks content creators. If it's good content, I like to share it. No need to pretend that we're the only ones producing awesome Hawks content. And somebody who has been putting out some great videos is Lee Grossman. It's kind of got like a humorous spin to it. He does his own Blackhawks takes. Lee, that's Lee. Grossman, as in Grassemann. He's also on Twitter. Dude's got, in my opinion, some solid Blackhawks takes. He likes to find stupid Twitter comments and kind of roast them on YouTube, and that's always fun. He's probably roasted my takes a few times. So give him a follow. It's good stuff. That's my stick taps.
I love that. Sharing love with all the fellow Hawks content creators.
I'm gonna have to see if I follow this guy. You always come up with some good content creators down there, Steve.
Steve is the discovery guy. That's just in his job description here at OnTap.
Lurking.
He's always lurking in the shadows.
Lurking. Neighborhood watch style.
Neighborhood watch, peeking out his blinds on the old X platform.
He's gonna change his handle to @Blackhawks Neighborhood Watch.
That would be
I like
hysterical. That would be quite hysterical. If we see an account created at any point separate from Steve's, we'll know that's his burner account moving forward. It's funny, actually. I'm glad you brought up Lee because I had a tweet of his bookmarked for a potential article later because he said Kevin Korchinski should be in the NHL, and I disagree. So, but would love to have Lee as a guest on the show, and we could talk more about that.
And that's why I like him, because I agree with that take. So that's
you
should
know,
absolutely
I
write
think
that.
I think the Blackhawks landscape would be incredibly boring if we didn't disagree at times as content creators. So very,
Absolutely.
very excited and appreciate the inspiration from Lee. I actually just recently followed him as well. So got to give the love where it's due to our fellow.
Read that
creators.
handle one more time for the listeners and myself, asking for a friend.
Yeah, so Lee, Lee, and his last name is Grossman. That is spelled Grassemann.
Yep, all one word as the @ handle.
His profile says he's the best YouTuber on the platform.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I believe the quote is
high
him
praise
as well. That is high praise. It is still very high praise, even if it comes from yourself. We are a fan. Gentlemen, my stick tap goes out to hockey. Hockey's almost back. I'll tell you what. As a lot of people know here, I've shifted some endeavors here at On Tap, and a lot of good changes going on in life, and it's been very chaotic recently. And the Cubs made the playoffs, which is awesome, but probably haven't seen my face much on Cubs on Tap. It's because I am no longer the man in charge. That's our good friend, Mr. Nick Hudson. I'll appear on there once in a blue moon, but I'm not actively involved in the day-to-day per se anymore. And the Bears continue to break my fucking heart, even though I love doing Bears on Tap with good friends Sonny and Q. So, gentlemen, I am so excited that hockey is here. I'm so excited to be on the microphone with you guys a ton this season. So stick taps to just hockey being back and the Four Feathers podcast being in full swing here for season 7. I am pretty stoked. And it's really, really hard not to be with what is to come.
I do have another stick tap, Ron.
Let's hear it.
It's our guy, Patrick Comiskey, for coming up with, I think, one of the best marketing ideas. I think he wants Jamie Faulkner's job. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Our guy, Pat Comiskey, came out with an article the other day, proposal for Throwback Night at the United Center. I'm not going to give away all of his ideas on what Throwback Night would entail to the listeners. They should go and read that over on tapsportsnet.com. But Pat Comiskey bringing the heat, setting the tone, some would say, for how the Blackhawks should do this in a cool and tough manner if they wanted to have an awesome night at the United Center for the centennial season. It's the centennial season. It's going to be really fun. And Pat Comiskey came up with an excellent Throwback Night idea with just the way that this night should go. You can find that over on tapsportsnet.com. But season 7, man, he's been our enforcer here for 7 years, long, tenured as long as you and I, Ron, here at On Tap Sportsnet. So shout out to Pat Comiskey. Give him a little stick tap.
Indeed. Shout out to our friend, Mr. Patrick Comiskey. I'll tell you what, man, he is the enforcer here because the only ever times I've fought with somebody on a microphone have been with Mr. Comiskey. First over the
you and I haven't fought yet.
No, we did. We were the great shouting match of Jeremy Colleton back in 2019, I believe,
somewhere around there.
Somewhere
that was a good shouting match. I remember you started doing this at some point.
There's an infamous video somewhere on the interwebs of the behind the scenes of that episode being recorded, and just the three of us just shouting at each other in Casa de Marchese garage.
Hey,
Tony.
Steve, could you believe that it was because this guy liked Jeremy Colleton at the time?
It was.
Say it ain't so, Rod. I did not know that.
It is so. I was on the let's at least give the guy a chance before we totally poo-poo it thing. And I will always admit when I'm wrong, and I was horrendously wrong. So neither here nor there. We've grown and we learn ever since that day. But it was a good one. And then, of course, Corey Perry. That was another great episode, Tony. You were on with that one when we talked about that signing. And ultimately, Comiskey was right. You and I were very on board with it. And he gets dismissed for reasons, and Comiskey probably smiled from ear to ear when he saw that news that he was no longer a Chicago Blackhawk. Gentlemen, what's on tap next? Well, besides a great season 7 here from us at the Four Feathers podcast, there is Blackhawks hockey on the horizon. It's a lot closer than you think. Preseason games get kicked off next week, with the first one being on Tuesday. That'll be at Detroit. It is a 6:00 Central start time, and that is on CHSN because all the Blackhawks play preseason games this year, all 6 of them, including the road games, are on CHSN. That is a first. Anybody that has habitually tried to catch preseason games in years past, NBC Sports usually only carried the home broadcast, and it was always just radio for the away games. This year, not the case. You'll get Rick Ball and Darren Pang. Maybe they'll get some of the secondary commentators involved for maybe some of those road games. Maybe Ball and Pang won't travel for those, but they'll be on TV, which is super exciting. So we get to watch all the Blackhawks prospects and current roster players for all 6 games instead of just 3. After Tuesday's game, the Blackhawks have a back-to-back over the following weekend. So that is the weekend of the 27th and 28th of September. That Saturday and Sunday, respectively, are at St. Louis and at Minnesota, with 6 and 5 o'clock Central Time starts. So 3 road games to get things kicked off, but people will be able to watch Blackhawks hockey as soon as next week. Certainly, we will be back over here sometime during that mix to talk about probably the first game and preview those 2 over the weekend. And then, of course, the 3 at home against those same opponents will follow. The exact dates, gentlemen, I have them right here in front of me. September 30th, they play the Red Wings at home at the United Center. That is also a Tuesday. And then it is a Friday-Saturday back-to-back with Minnesota and St. Louis, respectively, on October 3rd and 4th. Again, those games over at CHSN with, again, the weird opener, Tony, as you mentioned earlier, a 4 o'clock start on ESPN on October 7th. So what's on tap next? Real hockey, folks. It's here. We're ready. There is no waiting for the next thing and waiting for the next thing of the offseason. The long summer has come and gone. Blackhawks hockey at the United Center is right around the corner. We are super excited for that. Gentlemen, as always, we appreciate everybody that listened along with us live. Of course, those in the comment section, we certainly appreciate you. If you're listening to this on podcast, certainly we hope you'll like us and subscribe. Give a review if you are so kind. If you're over on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that bell button for the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel. You'll know when we go live and all of our other great shows here as a part of the network as well. Of course, ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on the socials, the OnTap Sports Network. Go check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Hockey's back, guys. It's great to be back on the microphone with the 2 of you for Four Feathers Season 7. We can't wait for everybody to join us for the ride. Until then, what do you say, guys? Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.